I'm Joshua Potts, Mr. Pottsville, always with the brother with the same mother, Aaron Potts, Super Hot Potts, and you're watching and listening to your favorite two black runners every single
Two black Tuesday. Woo! That was a good one. That was a good
Hey,
one. That was a good one
hey,
for real though.
we back on it. We back on it, bro. Props to you.
Hey,
Props to you. You've been getting better.
hey, you guys got me hype. I love it. I love it.
But yeah, let's jump into it, bro. We got a great interview, a great guest here today. Honestly, it's a pleasure to be on this podcast. He has a new book coming out, Running Against All Odds, as well. This man was a prestigious coach at all levels, 68 team state championships on the high school level,
Crazy.
17 national high school championships as well on a high school level, 100 plus high school All-Americans in track and cross country as well. This dude does it on both sides. His team still holds the 4x800 record at pin relays, a time of 8:43. That's 2:10 a girl, Aaron.
That's
2:10
crazy.
That's I've never
crazy.
seen that before. I never seen something like that. It's a pleasure to have him on. Coach Dez, Desmond Dunham on the podcast, bro. Just first off, bro, thank you for coming on the podcast. And just what's up? I don't know what to say. What's up?
Well, thanks for having me. I love what you guys are doing. I love it. I love that you're tag teaming as brothers, and just adding more, spark to the track and field world. And I just love how you're doing it, how you're presenting it, and you're just having a lot of fun with it. And that's how we should be in this sport. We got to make it fun. I appreciate being here. Thank you for having me, fellas.
Yeah, most definitely. And we had to come in, we got to put a little bit of seasoning on the podcast game. But at the same time, like, we appreciate you. Like, before you reached out to us, we hadn't heard of you, but you deserve your flowers. Joshua just went through all of the stats and all the crazy things that you have done as a coach. And I think that you're the first coach we've had on. And for it to
Yeah.
be a black distance coach too,
Oh,
I think that's cool, bro. Like I wouldn't expect that. Like I haven't had many black distance coaches in my lifetime. I didn't really have a black coach.
Wow.
Just for distance after I graduated, no, after middle school, after I came out of club. I didn't
Wow.
have a black coach like that. So to see all those amazing things you've done, and then like Joshua was saying, we have like our older brother. He's trying to become a head coach. One of my old roommates, he was just a head coach at UC Santa Barbara. So you don't see them every day, but they out there and they doing work and they hold
hear.
records. They hold records.
Well, it's funny you're saying this, and now you just made me flash back to when I first started coaching. I was in my early 20s, and I'm looking everywhere for coaching clinics. You can find them anywhere now, but back when I first started, couldn't really find coaching clinics, especially in DC. And I remember finding this advanced endurance coaching seminar. And first of all, I wasn't qualified. I didn't have the credentials to go in. And I'll never forget walking up into the registration, and I realized, oh man, this is a different game right here. I was the only one of us in the room. Of course, I got some pats on the back, I got some love, and then I got some stares, unfortunately. And so that was my welcome into the national level, training and coaching and seminar sessions. Was that it was a mixed bag of emotions. And from that time on, I'm thinking to myself, I got to represent.
Mm-hmm.
I got to just beat on my craft every day, day in and day out. I got to find out what everyone else is reading, and then I got to go do some more homework on my own. And here I am 25 years later, still in the game, still having fun, still trying to break some records.
Man, mad respect. That's mad respect. And I really just feel that too, because like we've said on the podcast a million times, but we grew up in club track and our dad was our coach for all those years. And he was coaching Aaron in the 3000. He was coaching me in the 800. Like none of us were really just we weren't coming out the gate like running the 1, the 2, trying to be Usain Bolt. We did as a sub Bantam, but like once we got to like as a Bantam boy, 10 years old, it was like, oh dang, we knew we were going to move up in distance and then doing cross country. Besides David, he threw the shot put in disc. He's the black sheep of the family, but you know, but that's besides the point. But I want before we dive deeper, I kind of want to have a discussion since me and Aaron, we're kind of going on like similar paths, and we know people that going on similar paths that want to be like you, like have those crazy accomplishments. Like I'm coaching with my dad a little bit right now at this school that he just started coaching at Norco High School in cross country and track. And so I'm helping out there. So we kind of just want to get some advice from you and kind of just pick your brain a little bit during the podcast. But before we get there, I think it's always good to rewind back a little bit. And I'm kind of just curious of like, when was one of your like earliest sports memories where you kind of just started falling in love with just the idea of like sports, not particularly running, but it could be running, but just sports in general?
Well, you know, I mean, growing up, I knew I was the next Michael Jordan growing up. So unfortunately, the coaches of the teams I tried out for didn't think so. So I was cut from the elementary basketball team. I was cut from my middle school basketball team. And get this, I had to run cross country to go out for basketball. And I ended up getting cut from cross country. So, I mean, it was like 80 of us out there running, and the coach didn't really want to do the work. You know, I mean, the more kids you have, the harder you gotta work, the more you gotta plan. I run a no-cut program, and you know, it makes my job a little bit more stressful, but it makes it that much more rewarding. But you know, yeah, this coach, he didn't want to do the work, and he took like 20 guys, and I had a bad day, and then the next day I decided to eat a foot-long hot dog, and I'm talking about this tryout and running against the odds. And so but probably my most fond memory goes back to Little League baseball. I was pretty good at baseball. I remember walking over the train tracks with my buddies, and I think it's another story behind why I loved it so much, and because that was the most accessible sport that I had that I could actually walk to. Because unfortunately, you know, my dad wasn't in the picture, and I talk a lot about that even in my memoir, where you know, he was alcoholic, and he ended up he served in the Vietnam War, came back with PTSD, and that led to some other things. So this was the one sport that I could actually walk out of my door, hook up with my buddies. We could walk to practice together. We could walk back, and so it was a nice it was just a great community feel. And I think you guys know this. You love working hard with your team and your family and your brothers. And when you start to develop that, you know, you forget about how hard you work, and sometimes just because of that camaraderie. And so that's what that baseball did for me. And I'm forever thankful with all those guys that I played with Little League baseball with.
Yeah, it's always good, you know, to have that outlet as a child, you know, and just to have that place where you can connect and make friends. I wanted to hear more so too, Gary, Indiana. Shout out Michael Jackson. I know that's where Michael Jackson from. You know, that's like when you said you were gonna be the next MJ, I was like, yeah, you know, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, they all, you know, Gary, Indiana. That's funny. But what was it like growing up there? I remember I seen that one. Remember the Jackson 5 movie, and it
was always on BET, bro.
We used to always watch that, and they're laying out when Joe's making them lay out the bricks. It's snowing. How did you know, living there shape you? How that make you like tough?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, Gary is a tale of two cities for me. You know, Gary, unfortunately, when I was growing up, it was the homicide capital of the U.S. You know, we had the Great Migration where we had the steel industry. So in the 50s and 60s, you know, all of our folks moved from the South to grab a lot of those, you know, industrial jobs. And then once it started to decline. Unfortunately, we didn't get the stimulus package. We didn't get the financial assistance. They started rezoning the city, closing it in a little closer and tighter. And unfortunately, that really left Gary just in a position where it was survival of the fittest. And educational system went down, unemployment went up, crime went up, drugs use went up. I mean, it was some things that unfortunately, learning later on that there just could have been a lot more done on a state as well as federal level. But with it being a 98% Black city, unfortunately, we were not valued enough that we were saved. So fast forward, it definitely joining and going out for cross country my freshman year, that changed the entire trajectory of my life. Because before then, I would say that school was okay for me. At an early age, I was dealing with a speech impediment. So I wasn't the cool kid getting, pulled out of class. By getting pulled out of class, I also have dyslexia. So that wasn't cool, and especially when it wasn't identified. And then I'm dealing with all the crap at home with my dad and his, alcoholism. And so it was my freshman year in high school when I went out for cross country, only because I was going to make that high school basketball team in spite of being cut freshman and sophomore year, freshman and elementary and middle school. But my high school coach ended up becoming a father figure for me. He taught me just so much about life through running. And that's something I try to do as a coach. I always say that my success is determined 5 to 10 years after an athlete leaves me. It's not the championships, it's not what they do in high school or whatever level I'm coaching them on. It's did I plant some seeds in this kid through our sport? Did I help them to become a better person, develop more grit, more determination? But and that's what my high school coach did for me. And we were an all-Black distance program, and this is where this DNA comes from. I was so fortunate where little old Gary, we got a school of 800 runners, split with gender, so roughly about 300, 400 boys. And here it is, the guy who runs, he's a year ahead of me. He's the first African-American to win a 5K state championship in 1988. And he was a sub 15-minute 5K runner. So, when I say we were getting it in, and we had this chip on our shoulders because, we realized when we traveled to some of the suburban schools that it didn't look like we didn't have those opportunities, and that put a little chip on our shoulder. So this guy goes off, he wins the state championship. We're celebrating, and then we get to the track season, and this guy has 47, 48 type leg speed. He decides to run in the outside of lane 1 to give his teammate the inside lane, so that he can kind of ward off the competitors. Every time someone tried to pass him, he would shift gears and he would fight them off. And then this teammate of ours, he's sitting right on the rail. This guy, he's a little old sophomore. So at the last 100 meters, Anthony Williams, he shifts away from all of his competitors and except the one teammate, which was Eric Smoot. And this guy, Eric, as a sophomore, wins the Indiana State Championship in a 4:13, and then he goes and wins it 3 years in a row. And these are the type of guys that I ran with. And to add a little bit more to the plot, the sophomore, Eric Smoot, who wins it 3 years in a row, was actually homeless during high school. And so he ended up having to stay with one of my teammates. And so these are the guys, these are the brothers I had around me. So, we were eating 2-a-days. We were we were grinding. We knew that it was a bigger purpose for us in life, and that's what helped me to garner, a scholarship to Howard University to be able to run for Howard. And lo and behold, I had no idea what Howard had in store for me on all fronts: academics, athletics, cultural, just development. And that high school trial just changed everything for me.
So I know you got the book right now, Running Against the Odds, but when are we gonna get the movie about the all-black cross-country team?
For real,
they got McFarland, but I need to see that movie. And also, I need to hear a little bit more about your high school coach. Like, what are some of those seeds that he planted in you, without giving away too much of the book?
Well, he's from Mississippi. His mother was a sharecropper. He went to Western Michigan University. He would go to classes during the evening, and then he would actually drive 2 hours to work at the steel mill in Gary. And he did this as a college student. So
wow,
he grew up knowing grit and grind, and he lost his mother at a very early age. And I mean, this. I mean, you grew up and some generations ago, and you're seeing your mother work on the fields, and you're strapped to her back. Your perspective in life changes, and so he, by far, had a chip on his shoulder. We called him Chief, and his name is Roosevelt Pulliam. And this was a guy who didn't believe in cutting any corners. And I'll never forget when he looked at me in the eyes and he said, "And you better not take a handout." And it was, you had to earn it from him. So needless to say, all guys didn't make it through his program, but the ones that did, I mean, he would go through walls and beyond for you. And so it was some tough love there, but I knew that I was being loved, and I was willing to do any and everything. And so was my teammates, and they all went on to major schools, and they're doing big things. Even my buddy Eric, he's someone I would love to pitch your way, because not only did he win the 3 state championships in the mile, I mean, he owns his own business, and he's doing extremely well right now. And when I say extremely, he's doing extremely well. And so just to see these brothers just getting it done with running, and then using running as a platform for some bigger things, as you guys are doing right now with this podcast. I mean, I'm loving every bit of this.
I think it's great that you said that, because I think we've had conversations on the podcast before about how, like, in like cross country, there's not that many people that are Black. There's not many people that we see like ourselves. But seeing from what Aaron has done, and my older brother Caleb, like, there's a lot of opportunities in running that people in the Black community are just not aware about. And especially just on like the sprint side in general, like, I feel like there are sprinters that are like deep into like who's the top pros and the shoes they're wearing and everything. But especially on the cross country side, for some reason, like, everyone turns into a geek at some point, or a nerd, and that brings them deeper into the game. And so, like, that's kind of why we wanted to start the podcast and everything. If we could bring more like Black people to the sport of cross country, or just empower the kids across the country who are like the only on their team and stuff like that as well. But I also just want to talk about your team as well in high school a little bit, but you could piggyback what I've just said as well. But just like, what were the conversations like when you guys were talking about like how being like going to these meets and going against like the suburban areas, like, man, like, we the only team that really look like this? What were those type of conversations that you guys constantly had?
Of course, you're going to have mixed emotions. I mean, we definitely felt like we had to represent. We were the first team from Gary to qualify for the state championships. I was at 16 and some change. We actually had 7 guys running under 17 minutes. And so we were competitive. We had 2 that were dipping under 16 minutes. I bring this one guy out, and he's a good buddy of mine. He spends all his time on the basketball court. I mean, hours and hours. This guy comes out and he runs 15:45 by the end of the season in his senior year, first year running cross country. But I mean, we just talk about guys that had the heart, the commitment. I mean, and once you start to feel that love, you know that last mile is dedicated to your brothers or your sisters, and that's the DNA that I coach with all of my teams. You know, regardless of their background, that's the DNA. You have to be willing to give it up for your teammates, because no one wants to solely pay that price day in and day out. But when you're doing it for someone else, but this transcends into family, this transcends into community, it transcends into career or starting your own business. And you know, Josh, the other aspect to being a middle and long distance runner as a, you know, African American, and it's just, we know that there's so many benefits in terms of what you cannot get being a sprinter. And that's no knock to a sprinter. There's some hardworking sprinters, but it's a totally different mindset when you endure into that 800 or into 50, 60, 70 miles a week, as you said earlier, and you feel run down, and you got to still find a way to still get it going. So those are the things that really develop us for life. And so I hate when we miss the boat on some of our people not wanting to do distance because it doesn't look sexy enough for them, or they didn't have the right coach to introduce it to them the right way. It goes on, but I just feel like they're missing out on some life development when they decide not to do it because it's too hard or too painful. That's a part of life. The quicker you learn to endure and to deal with pain and discomfort, then the faster you're going to move on in life and be, you know, closer to your potential of who you are.
Were you ever able to get someone that was like a 400 runner and have them transition to like cross country and have them find success? Because I've definitely, over my years, I've seen a lot of 400 runners. I'm all like, bro, you're running like 55 right now, bro. But like, if you came over here and ran the 8, you could probably, you'd be breaking 2 right off the bat.
Oh man,
and like
two,
you'd be
that's
zooming.
that's a whole different celebration from 55 seconds.
Yeah.
So truth be told, that the national record that we broke were previous sprinters that I was able to convince. And so I do want to say that I didn't throw them in the fire. I mean, I do more studying now on sports psychology than I do in actually the X's and O's of coaching, because it's all about making sure you're connecting with your athletes, making sure that you know what's going to get them excited, what's going to make them tick. And so I just started with 1 runner, and then it became 2, and then they started to see some results. And competitive people, they're not that foolish. You know, here it is, 55. You running almost, you know, the first heat, and with the slower runners, and then you break 2 minutes, and then, man, the whole team is going nuts, and everybody likes that feeling. And so just trying to bake that person or that athlete, and also letting them know the long-term benefits they're going to have. And I even say now that being running distance myself from the 800 and up, and see at Howard, we didn't have a whole lot of cats running. So everybody ran all the way up to cross country, and I love cross country though. But what I'm getting at is that it has really preserved my body. You know, I'm 49 right now, and I play ball with college, you know, basketball players. I still run about 30, 40 miles a week. And I attribute that it's the distance running. If you do it the right way, it is, from a physiological standpoint, it is preserving your body more than when you're ripping it up with all the deep anaerobic work on a consistent basis. Now, don't get me wrong, you do got to go through that, but there's some athletes, they live in that zone, sprint, tearing up the intracellular tissues and not recovering, and those things have long-term damage. It's the aerobic work that's going to give you just a better feeling overall in life when that career is over, if you do it the right way.
There's a lot of opportunities still to run after collegiately. Like you want to run a marathons, you want to run 5Ks, you have those opportunities there. And then most of these shoe brands, if you want to get a job, a lot of them are distance based. And I mean, I'm someone like Joshua said, I work for a shoe brand now. I work at Hoka now, and running was like a big vehicle to that. And I think that's a lot of what you're speaking to. Was that something that your coach really instilled? Because you said your team, everyone is doing really big things now.
Oh yeah, it was all about the life afterwards. He would make that clear to us that running is a means to an end. It starts with running, but it ends with success. If you're not building that bridge and using running to network or to open up doors for you, and because he was tired of just seeing, especially a lot of guys. Unfortunately, and Gary had all these hoop dreams. I was one of those guys, but we have these hoop dreams, and then as soon as that dream ends at 16, 17, 18 years old, you're not really prepared and haven't really thought about how you're going to navigate after that. And it wasn't until I got to Howard when I heard a gentleman, Juwanza Kunjufu, who is he's an advocate for African Americans in education. He talked about that there's 1 million Black men or more that aspire to be a basketball player a year. Only 400,000 will actually make a high school team. 3,500,000 will make a college team. And then out of that, this stat was like 35 players will play for an average of 4 years. And when you start hearing that stat, and then even you looking at the stats today where a lot of our folks in basketball and football are bankrupt 5 years after they leave the professional league. I mean, these stats are real. And if we don't have more of us, just hammering that into and ingraining it into our minority athletes' heads, then a lot of them will think that there's this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow with running. And yeah, there's a lot of notoriety, but are you branding yourself the right way to use that notoriety to explode into something else, to start your own business, to start your own brand, to start your own podcast, to become that next executive, CEO? And not enough of us are being taught that. And that's a sore spot with me when I see that it's all about winning with us in these programs. It's a great feel. I love to win. I'm super competitive, but I want to win in life. The high school experience, that's checkers. Life is chess, so we need you making moves now so you can position yourself. So that's what my high school coach was all about. And matter of fact, you mentioned about the movie, Aaron, and I would love for the movie to be about him and what he gave us, because he would give us anything we ever needed. And it was something special about him, what he was able to develop with us. And I that's part of the plan. I wanted to be a pitch with my team from high school, and I would love for there to be a pitch with the young ladies who won pin relays, because that was in front of a crowd of 40,000 spectators, and it's a slug fest on the 4x8 going back and forth. And I'm not going to tell the listeners the outcome, but you had the Jamaican flags going, and swing. I mean, the big flags, the whistles blowing. They're Jamaica, and then you got USA on the other side. USA. I mean, the whole place is erupting, and imagine the race going back and forth, and it was just a neat thing to be a part of. And so I would love to see that on the big screen as well, and that's part of the plan. And so if we got any film people out there that's listening to this, hey, let's go. Hey, one of you guys might want to take this on.
I mean, we got to hit up David, bro. We got to hit up the brother. Our brother, he's all into the film.
And I'm just trying to get a part. Like, can I be in the high school? Like, for the next 10 years, I'm going to look this young for at least the next 10 years. You feel me? I could be the number 7 guy. You feel me? I could be. I already know how to run. Like you feel me? Like no one will be. I could be one of the Americans in the stands waving the flags. Like
Hey,
I could definitely play a part.
You remind me, it's hilarious when they get these cats in these running movies and they can't run at all. So you'll be way ahead of the game.
That would be
Come on, I
funny.
can do my own stunts. Like come on, bro.
One thing else I was curious about too, because like I think about my experience, and it's like, yeah, we did club track, and that's where we grew up, and we had like those values instilled of track being a vehicle. Our dad was all about you're running to get a scholarship, like that was the whole purpose behind the running, and it's led to me getting this job. But I think I find it very interesting for you, like you went from, because for me in high school, I was the only. In college, I was the only. When I ran semi professionally, sub elite, I was the only. Whereas for you, high school, when you were introduced into the sport, like everyone you was all black, and you guys were the only team, but you were together. And then
Yeah, that's
you went
different.
to Howard at HBCU, and I'm just gonna guess and say everyone on your team was black too, and that was an experience.
Minus one.
Shout out to that one though.
Yeah,
Shout
Shout
out
yeah.
out
to
He was,
that
Mark.
he, was,
one.
he was a good guy, man. He was a real cool guy. Yeah. William Groen. Yep.
So I'm down with everybody here and Mark. You see that?
Yeah.
And then when you finally move into the coaching world and you're on the distance side, it's a little
Yeah.
bit different. But what was that experience like? Going from high school to college and then like coaching.
So my experience at Howard was just phenomenal. And to be honest with you, Howard made me appreciate more of who I was. Before I went to Howard, I would say that I was this ship in the middle of the ocean, still trying to find some direction. I didn't have that rudder. And going to Howard, that gave me a lot of direction. And so when you know who you are and where you're from, then it gives you a better perspective to me on appreciating others, appreciating diversity, but you always get that extra eye to try to make sure you balance and equal the playing field. And I think that's always key, no matter how successful we are, that we are always trying to work to equal the playing field for others that are less fortunate and didn't have that opportunity. So that's just kind of how I live my life. Right now, I'm coaching in a very diverse program, but at the same time, I run a male mentorship program at another school, and so I'm always finding ways. I'm an Under Armour coaching ambassador as well, and so I want to use my platform. And that's part of, I want to do a lot of book talks with Running Against the Odds, because it talks a lot about overcoming obstacles. And we got a lot of brothers and sisters that, because of their zip code and where they were born, that's determining some of their opportunities. And that's not a fair shake. That's not freedom. That's not an American dream at all. And so my job is to ignite myself as well as others to make sure, as they are living out their dreams, living out their passion, that they're pulling other people up and pulling other people in. And so we always got to make sure that we keep that extra eye on what else can we do to help? What else can we do to help? And that's, if you're not doing that, I mean, to me, you're not really doing your part in life. My grandmother, she would take us places when we were little, and we would just tear the place up. And she would always say, look, you better leave this place better than you found it. And that was her threat. And to me, that's how we should look at the world. That's how we should look at our community. We should look at our people. When we leave a legacy, so that we are making it better for others, and we're making this world better. And we got to leave our mark.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, for sure. I'm low-key kind of motivated. I kind of want to do another 6 miles today or something. But now you gotta rest. You gotta rest the body. But I kind of want to shift gears a little bit too, because running against the odds is also, like you said, overcoming things. And I'm pretty sure there has to be something in there about just overcoming the sport and running in general. And sort of like, I'm coaching a little bit right now. My brother coaches, and so a question that I have to you, just like a coach to coach in a way, like when you have a kid who's like someone who's the pressure's like getting to them, like even before they get to the line, like they feel overwhelmed of the pressure, or like they break down, or like they feel like they can't do it even though they put in all this work. How would you talk to someone like that to be able to have them overcome that odd?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we are seeing anxiety at a very high level, and then you add COVID to the equation. I mean, that really just from a mindset perspective, it's tough on our athletes now. I would say the main thing as a coach is that you got to be careful where you're not talking down to an athlete, but you're talking with an athlete. And you got to dig in and start thinking about some of your pitfalls to share with them to, hey, this is human, this is normal. Let's not overanalyze this, but I mean, you can't really say it like that. But when you that and running against the odds, I'm sharing stories that I shared with my team that they would come back and say, man, that story really motivated me. And it wasn't the stories when I was running my personal records. I mean, they're like, okay, yeah, we expect that from you. It was the stories when I'm telling them how I'm in the trenches. And yeah, one of my stories I tell quite often is I'll never forget my junior year in high school when I'm thinking I'm going to be in the top 10 at this big invitational. And they in Indiana, it's a big deal. You're in the top 10, you're sitting in these big lavish chairs, and you're sitting in front of everyone, thousands, runners, spectators, parents, the whole nine, and they're calling you up, and you stand there, you get that award, you sit in that chair, and I'm thinking, I'm sitting in that chair, and the gun goes off, and I'm sitting right there in the top 20, and I'm like, all right, this is perfect. First mile goes by, mile and a half into the race, I'm starting to labor a little bit, breathing starting to get a little heavy. I'm like, all right, it's a little premature, but I'm gonna grind this out. By the time I hit the 2 mile mark, I'm in 35th place. And it was just all downhill from there. I ended up getting this ribbon in the chute, 75th place. And I'll never forget, I'm walking away and I throw the ribbon down, and it was raining and there was mud on the ground, and falls into this mud. And my coach comes up behind me. He's, pick that ribbon up, Desmond. And he loud booming voice, and he just let me have it. He told me I got what I deserved. Like I said, he was a straight shooter. He said, you know, that's poor sportsmanship. He didn't like the attitude. And then later on the bus ride home, he ended up pulling me up to the front of the bus, and he ended up just saying, look, you're a nice guy, but you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision what you want out of life. And that kind of resonated with me. And so I ended up going home, and I taped the ribbon next to my light switch. And every day I flick that light switch on, and I'm looking at that ribbon, and that ribbon made me sick. And I had a decision to make. Do I want to keep getting those ribbons? And it was not, you know, literally, but I mean, I didn't want to keep getting the ribbons, but it was like, all right, you got to wake up. You got more in you. You sitting up here, you're whining, complaining. You don't do everything you're supposed to do, and you think you're doing enough, but enough ain't gonna get it for you. And it was that ribbon that ignited everything for me. That was the ribbon is the reason I got the scholarship to Howard, that wake up call. And I think that we have definitely moved into more of results driven, scoreboard driven performances, and celebrating those more than we do with making mistakes, taking risk, you know, failing forward. And so we now have a generation that we're developing where they're afraid to make mistakes, and it's adversity that's going to make them a better dad, a better husband, a better community man. And it's not going to be, I don't even know where some of my trophies and medals are. I know where that ribbon is, but I guarantee you start to have those types of conversations, you're going to see some growth and development.
I like the fact that you're saying like, oh my bad, but like they're saying like don't be conscious of not trying to talk down to the athlete, but talk with the athlete. I just think that's a really good gem that everyone could take, not even just like talking to an athlete, but talking to somebody that you're collaborating with on a project, or talking to your son, or talking to your baby cousin or something. It's definitely in general. But there you go. I just want to say that real quick, Aaron. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, all I was gonna say is from this whole time we've been on here, like I just love that everything that you're doing, it's about something bigger than running. Like when you listed off all of those things on, what that moment is going to make them better at, you didn't say it was going to make them, you didn't even mention, the word athlete, or, professional or Olympian. You're talking about people becoming fathers, and you about becoming like businessmen and women. And I think I agree with you. I feel like that developing character within athletes has gone, and everyone's about getting the most likes, being the top person. So and I also just wanted to I wanted to give a shout out to Running with the Odds. This man's dropping gems. He giving y'all a little too much, but y'all need to go check out this book for sure. And I wanted to ask you, so like when did the idea first come into your mind to write this book? Why'd you pick that title as the name? All of that.
So the first time was a bit over a decade ago, and I gave one of those speeches, and I'll never forget how I'm telling this story, and I don't remember what story it was, but I had a young lady who stuck around afterwards. I mean, they left inspired, they were motivated, and she says, "You need to write a book." And it was just a message that, to me, she was saying that more people need to hear this type of storytelling and messaging. And and also, as I shared, I have dyslexia, so having a speech impediment, I'm thinking, all right, I want to be a public speaker. And having dyslexia, I'm like, you know what, writing a book, that'd be pretty cool to do. So I'm always trying to go against the grain. I'm always being a black distance runner, and then a coach of an all-black team, at one point in time, and I mean, just always trying to represent, pave the way. And I want to give our people permission, but I also want to give everyone permission to make this world better. And so when she said that to me, that resonated with me, and I never lost that thought. I was super busy. Then I remember telling my wife at one point, maybe about 7 years ago, I definitely want to do this. And for some reason, I knew it had to have running in the title and some type of obstacle. And it just really came to me. It really came to me when I was on a run. And I always do my best thinking when I'm running out there, running in scenery and on a trail or something. And I'm like, that's it. It hit me. And so then when the pandemic hit, I'm thinking, all right, now is the time. I'm also a dad as well. My kids are 14 and 16, and they are soccer players, and I'm always on them about challenging themselves. And so I'm also, I believe I got to lead by example as well. So that's what I always tell coaches when I speak to them in coaching clinics. You have to lead by example. And you have to also remember you're human. Your athletes are human. And I'll never forget seeing one of my buddies, he's irate at one of his practices. And I'm thinking like, dude, you sucked when at times at some of our practice, you were going off like you never skipped a beat at all. And he's like, man, really? And so sometimes we gotta check ourselves and making sure, and I'm not saying being soft, I'm not saying don't have high standards and expectations, but it's how you get there. And you wanna make sure that you're bringing that kid along the way and connecting with that kid, and you're not just making it, success in track and in any sport should be a byproduct of executing other things first. And we sometimes try to put the results before we put the process. And too many of us, we we don't even really enjoy the process the way we should. That journey is everything. I mean, the fact that you guys are going to be able to talk about being brothers, getting it done in the sport of track and field, like don't take that lightly. And I know we want to run certain times, but the more we enjoy the process and the moment, it makes you want to come back and work harder and to be more dedicated. And sometimes we tip the scales when we're just chasing results.
I like how you said that too, of just like enjoying the journey and the process. Cause I find that my favorite time in like the running, racing's definitely my favorite thing, obviously, but like summer training and like cross country to track, like that winter block too, I love those times where like I'm kind of just like grinding away, either if it's by myself or with my friends as well, like running together. I don't know, just being able like to do it on my own and like to train hard and like expect like, all right, we're having a journey to what I'm gonna do this year is some of like the best time that I have with running and like really like enjoying myself. And what was kind of just pivoting from that, also what was the journey like writing this book? Like what did you learn about yourself the most from this, having like dyslexia and writing like a full, that's a lot of pages. That's a lot of writing. How was that?
It was 250 pages. I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna knock this out in 6 to 8 months. And the best way to explain it was almost like training for a 5K. And then the next thing you know, you're in an ultra marathon. And so it ended up taking me a year and a half. I'm up to like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. My daughter loves to write. I say to her, hey, you're gonna write the children's book to this? She's like, oh no, you way too stressed. She's like, you don't make writing look fun for me. So it was arduous, but I mean, again, I think that, I know that having the mindset of a distance runner, that once I'm on that pony, that's it. I mean, it's gonna get done. No matter how much I whine or complain, I know that it's going to get done. And it's the same thing you do with your training. I know Josh, you were up to 70 miles a week. You probably only wanted to do maybe 25 to 30, but the other 40, 45 was dedicated to results, and that's where we got to always make sure that I constantly remind myself, what did I do today to get one step closer to my goal? And so it was like watching grass grow, and I could lose some days because I changed the plot, I changed the scene and the story, and so I didn't stay up to 5 o'clock a couple of mornings, and then I don't even use that material. I mean, it was painful, but I'm really happy that I did it. And now that I've done it, I do feel way more confident where I want to spit out, another 2 books. One is that guide that I just mentioned, and then I would like to do a sequel because it ends in 2008 with the memoir, and I would like to pick up from 2009, and hopefully I'll be talking about some other great stories along the way.
Yeah, and I like what you said about being a distance runner, because I think back to in COVID, me and Joshua, when we started the podcast, he was like, let's do 52, and I was like, bro, he's like, that's one every week for the whole year.
Yes.
52. I was like, bro, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, let's go for it. And same thing, like finding guests and topics every week. It really got us through COVID in hindsight, but it was saying that distance runner mentality, like you got to hit your mileage, like you just got to do it, and you just stay dedicated. And we're reaping some of those the rewards, the seeds that were sown during that season, for sure.
I love it. That's why I feel like some folks are cheated when they can be a middle long distance runner and they choose not to. It's just so many benefits to it. But I mean, we all know that it's that mindset. You develop that grit, that stick-to-itiveness. I mean, all of that is just, it becomes your DNA. So you feel like you might be a little intimidated, but you're not afraid to step out there, because I mean, we all are overcoming obstacles and odds along the way. And And that's the other part about running against the odds, that I want to remind folks that you're not alone. We all are intimidated. We all go through pitfalls. We all want to be safe. We all want to, have money in our pocket. We all want to just be super successful, but in everything that we do, but we know you're going to trip up, you're going to fall. And the memoir is a reminder where I'm very vulnerable in it. And also, to answer your question, Josh, it kicked up a lot of dust because it was some hard conversations, with my siblings and some of my dad's siblings, where they weren't aware of some of the things that were going on, and even having conversation with my mother, because she had to deal with it with my dad, since that was her husband, and so it kicked up a lot of dust for me, but it was also therapeutic. And I always will say that if you are dealing with anything in life, meet it head on, get the right resources, get the right people around you, get the mental health therapy. You're sweeping it under the rug. It doesn't do anything for you, and it chips away at you, but it also can ruin, future relationships with some folks that or that significant other that you should have something special with.
Yeah, I feel that. Thank you for all the gems you dropped on us, Coach Dez. And I think we're gonna take this to heart, even for us, and I think our listeners are gonna take this to heart too. And especially y'all gotta go read Run Against the Odds, man. Y'all gotta go read it and go check it out. And before we close out, we have a few just like quick questions, just that we also want to touch on. And like I think Aaron put this one on here too. Is like, could you speak to the Kids Elite Sports mission that you have going on? What is that all about, and what you do with the Kids Elite Sports mission?
Yeah, so Kids Elite goes hand in hand with what I was mentioning earlier, just getting back to enjoying playing good, wholesome sports and learning how to do it from a fundamental level. And so in the area that I'm in DC, is highly specialization. And you see these kids, they're specializing at a very early age. And when you have the diversity, those are transferable skills. And it's you don't run into burnout, you don't run into overuse, you don't, and there's your 2%ers that somehow they can manage through it and they can stay in that one sport but there's a good population that they can easily hit burnout. You guys did age group track. I'm sure you've seen some national champions at 7, 8 years old. And then all of a sudden you're like, hold on, that cat not even running right now. Like what's going on? And so that's what Kids Elite is all about, where our campers are taking about, so it's a sports camp, and they're taking about 15,000 steps in a 5-hour period. And they're playing sport after sport after sport. And so it's easy for one of them to join a track team when they're 12 or 13 because of the fitness levels. And so we're teaching proper running mechanics to ultimate frisbee to badminton. So you name it, we game it, and it's a ton of fun. And all of my counselors are trained at a really high level, and we own the fact that after each and every session, you're learning some character building. We're applying that session to a life skill or life lesson. And even Kids Elite is an acronym. It means effort, leadership, integrity, teamwork, and excellence. And so we're always honing in on those areas. And so we have 4 sites now. We started with 10 kids. Now we have about 1,000 kids throughout the DMV. We just set it up where we're going to start franchising Kids Elite. So we would love to bring one in your neighborhood. So it's going really well, and our campers are just absolutely loving the fact that they can do so many multiple sports and have great counselors that can teach them how to appreciate the games that they're playing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think there's such a need and so much opportunity with that, especially what you're saying with all the connections you have and like being in the DMV with the HBCUs that are kind of like in that area too. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I might have some ideas for you offline that we could
All
talk
right.
about
Okay.
later.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Wait, Aaron, low key, the DMV sounds kind of lit. I'm not even gonna lie to you. You get to live
Let's
out there.
go.
You low
Let's
key,
go.
you get to be a Baltimore Ravens fan too, bro. The Wizards aren't that good, but like you get to be Lamar Jackson, and you got the basketballs out there. It's tight. Like I don't know, DMV's kind of cool. DMV's kind of cool.
It's really cool. I thought I was going to leave from here and go back to, well, Chicago, but there's so many opportunities, so many cool people in the DMV. You guys will absolutely enjoy it. If you come to DC, I will make sure you have a great time. So you're invited out. Come on out. You'll have a great time meeting some folks and hanging out.
Hey, Joshua, bro, you better apply to Howard, bro.
Hey, that would be awesome. That would be lit. That would be lit. But then also, we asked this question too. Anytime we have somebody on the podcast, definitely a new guest, because sometimes we don't know who to get, and like we love having people and interviewing them on. Like, and you already made some recommendations, but who do you think would be a great guest to have on the Two Black Runners podcast? Who do you think would be great to have on that fits the
Yeah.
mold, tell a great story and everything?
Yeah, I think Matt Green, who runs the District Running Collective, where he's not out here to trying to coach the next Olympian. He's just getting folks going. And a good amount of his population, if he didn't have this club, some of these people wouldn't be running, and it would be a lot of us. And so he's getting a lot of us to really appreciate, doing the aerobic work, and they have different classes in terms of paces when you come out. And I mean, everyone is welcome. Everyone feels appreciated. So Matt Green will be great. I have my buddy who was the 3-time Indiana State champion, who owns his own business now, Redefined Fitness in Evanston, Illinois, Eric Smoot. And probably the third person is a young lady who is in my area, and we have coached together. And she's one of the top coaches in the DMV, and that's Tia Clemens. She's at Woodrow Wilson High School. So those are the 3 that I would recommend. And then I got some partners who are also coaching on a collegiate level. Damon Griffith, who was at University of Miami. Now he's at University of South Florida, and some other collegiate, Black middle and long distance coaches. I have resources I would love to pitch your way, and so those are just a few to throw out there off the top of my head.
Hey, I mean, all those sound good. I really want this movie to happen about the high school, though. I really want this movie to happen about the high school. That sounds like a great story.
And then last question, we always try to ask this question. We have the podcast, then we'll get you out of here. Just like, what mark do you want to leave on the running world when it's all said and done? What do you want people to remember what you did in running in particular?
I think about that often, and I'll never forget being at a Hall of Fame dinner when the person received it posthumously, and the son accepted his award, and I'll never forget this, where he ended up thanking his mother for everything that she sacrificed for her husband to coach, and you could just see that he didn't have the respect for his dad the way that. So I say all of that to say that I want to make sure that I play it safe, where, I mean, I'm super competitive, so I can sometimes go down this rabbit hole and just not be present. So I wanted to preface that. I mean, I would like to be one of the GOATs, where, I mean, I've coached national championships from 200 meters all the way up to 5,000 meters. And even with the Roosevelt girls, we won the 4x2 and the DMR, and we made Nike cross-country nationals. And so, I like the range that I have, and it's all science, but I think that I just want to carry my platform and influence over to some other projects that I have. And one is the book and doing book talks, and the other one is, it's going to be a big one, but I would like to do a cradle to college program, literacy program. And so anyone who knows that if we put more into early childhood education, we wouldn't have to invest as much in the prison system. And the prison system is this multi-billion-dollar industry, and we can avoid that by teaching kids from low socioeconomic backgrounds at 2 years old. If we get them the reading programs, they wouldn't start school behind their counterparts. And a glowing stat is by the age of 3, if you come from an affluent home, you're going to hear 30,000 more words than someone who comes from a low socioeconomic home. And so with that disparity already, I mean, you're starting a race. You hadn't even put your spikes on, and they done shot the gun. And so, I mean, we're trying to catch up. I mean, after 300 plus years of slavery, it's a perpetual cycle. And we even have to remember that sometimes. And when we're put in tough situations, and sometimes we got to remember that when, we're feeling blessed and understand that there's a system out here that's perpetuating, and it starts with education. If everyone had that early childhood education, they're going to love school more. They're going to feel more hope. They're going to appreciate themselves more, because the worst thing in the world is to be 16, 17 years old and you're not loving school and you're not prepared for the real world. I mean, life becomes tough, and you're going to make it tough on someone else as a result of that.
Man, thank you for all of that. Thank you, Coach Dez, for coming on. We appreciate you telling your story, and we're so glad that we're able to broadcast this out to people as well, for they can hear more about what's going on. I appreciate you saying that you want to be the GOAT. A lot of people don't say that. You feel me? And but that's a real goal that people have, and I think that's something that you can strive for, and that you can go whatever. And being the GOAT doesn't mean that you have 6 rings and undefeated.
Right.
Being the GOAT can be so much more than that. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast and everything. We're about to close out, but Aaron, you got anything else you want to say to the people real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this podcast too long, but dang, this was a great one. This was definitely a great one. This was definitely.
I enjoyed it. Hey, we can do. Yeah, you can let a few more folks on, and then we come back and do a part 2 at some point.
For real though. But everything you're doing is stuff that I feel like me and Joshua aspire to do, and to have you on here and just talk about all the things that you have done with running, and like just to go back what Joshua was saying, talking about being the GOAT. Like when I was having like this talk with my friends about music. Streams, like the streams determine who's the best, and I always feel like it's influence. Like how are you influencing, and like how you said, you determine how good you coach based off how these people are doing in life, 10 years from now. How many people did MJ inspire? How many musical artists were inspired by Michael Jackson? So like, yeah, just a ton of and that's what I feel for the running report and 2 Black Runners. Like I want, like if we never have the numbers that we feel like that we want and never get that big, as long as I know we're having that impact and we're influencing whatever is next.
As long as you're influencing one person, I mean, I'll be honest, with you guys' energy, you motivated me. So, I mean, you already influencing folks out here. I mean, I definitely felt a connection here. I mean, y'all brothers are doing it. Y'all are ahead of where I was when I was your age. So, if you like some of the stuff that I'm saying, I guarantee you're going to be saying a whole lot more than me, because y'all way ahead of the game. Keep this platform up, because we need it. And I guarantee that if this is not the ticket, it's going to spin off into something else. You just got to keep plugging away. You keep plugging away, hey, you're going to see that light at the end of the tunnel. So, and just have fun with it, man. This is real cool right here. Real cool.
Appreciate you. And to everyone,
Aaron, we about to do another 52 straight, bro. We're going to do another 52 straight.
Yo. Oh, you going to give me gray hairs, bro. But this is a great podcast to everyone listening. As always, if you listen this far into the podcast, you truly are a day one homie, and we appreciate y'all and everything, all the support and love y'all give. That powers us to keep going, and and to get amazing. Y'all are the reasons why we get opportunities to get such amazing guests like this, and we know y'all love it, and that's why we love y'all. But other than that, Joshua, I got nothing else to say. close us out.
Yeah, go buy Running Against the Odds. That's all I really got, bro. They listen to the podcast. They listen to this far. They already bought the book. Come on, man. Coach Dez, thanks for coming on. We really do appreciate y'all. See y'all next Tuesday.
Hey, all right, fellas.